If you're familiar with my channel, you probably know that I like a good challenge. There's something uniquely satisfying about overcoming the odds, and it's in that spirit that I'm about to attempt this next challenge. I want to try beating Slay the Spire without using a single block card. What this means is I will basically be completely and utterly defenseless for the entire playthrough. But Reginald, how do you define a block card? Well, that's a good question. For these purposes, a block card is any card that directly gives you block when you play it. More specifically, a block card will say this in the card text. That being said, I'm still allowed to use relics, potions, or any cards that may indirectly give me block through interactions with other cards. I've spent several hours on and off stream attempting this challenge, and it went about as well as you could imagine. Oh, well, I'm not just dead, I'm desecrated. Holy fuck. Before we start, I should give a quick overview of what is Slay the Spire, because some people might be unfamiliar. Slay the Spire is a roguelike deck building game where you choose a character to traverse the many floors and levels of a spire. Along the way, you find some friends, some enemies, and a couple of strange encounters. Ultimately, you want to defeat the boss of each of the 3 floors before killing the spire's heart and winning the game. So that's the game in a nutshell. Now we can begin. Our first choice is to decide which character we want to use. Each comes with their own unique advantages and disadvantages, and after some careful deliberation, I chose the Silent. We load in and are immediately greeted by an out-of-season sperm whale. He offers us one of 2 blessings. Either we get 7 max health, or the next 3 enemies we fight have 1 health. Considering that half our deck is block cards, which we aren't allowed to use, the second option sounds pretty good right now. So we chose that, and the next 3 fights went about as well as you'd expect. From these fights, I managed to draft 3 cards, and it immediately became obvious what I had to do if I wanted to win. I decided that if I couldn't defend myself, then I was going to actually steer into that a little bit and just go completely glass cannon, balls to the walls, and try to kill everyone before they could hurt me. To this end, I'd need this card, Finisher. On its own, it does nothing, but if I use like a dozen attacks or so, and then follow it with Finisher, I can one-shot just about anything in the game. That being said, I was going to need a lot of cheap attack cards if I wanted to make this work. I encountered the first mini-boss. Despite my best efforts, these weird little pyramidal bastards brought me down to like 19 health. The joke's on them though, because they're dead, and now I have their relic, so. I also managed to draft one of the most important cards right here. Wraith Form it's an expensive card, but it gives you a status called Intangible, which for 2 turns reduces all damage I take to 1. I rested at a campfire to regain some of my health. This would be a common occurrence in this playthrough. The next few rooms rewarded me with the following relics. These would be very important, and they'd help generate a lot of gold, and if there's anyone that can survive without using block cards, it's a rich motherfucker. After killing a gypsy and my ex-girlfriend, I finally made it to the first real boss. By this point, my deck looked like this. Not great, but not terrible. The key to killing Big Slimer here is that you want to kill him a little bit, and then all at once. My opening hand was immaculate, just sent down from the angels directly 2 blade dances. That's 6 shivs if I use them both. So I decided to dig through my deck a little bit because now all I needed was a finisher, but instead I got this. Fuck. On to the next turn, and it's not looking so good. Just as the ooze was preparing to cave my fucking skull in, I drew a half-decent hand. 3 attacks followed by Finisher. It was good enough. I used this combo to get the boss to half health, which interrupts his attack and forces him to split into 2 smaller blobs. At this point, it was actually pretty smooth sailing. However, the slimes started stacking up a lot of debuffs on me, which reduced the amount of block that I gained from cards. This could be a big issue.
I don't give a fuck, actually.
After a few more turns, we had the first boss dead. We picked up the Calling Bell, which gives us 3 relics and a curse. If you know anything about me, it should be that I'm an absolute slut for relics, and so this wasn't even a choice for me. All in all, this was the haul. On to floor 2. I encountered some rabid turkeys in the first room, so I stabbed them to death. Then I ran into a shady man with a nice smile. I bought some steroids off him. If I was going to go glass cannon, I might need a little help. Eventually, I made my way to the first shop, and with 500 gold in my pockets, I was ready to get freaky. When I saw his collection, I shit my pants very hard. because he was selling one of the best card and relic combinations in the game. Apotheosis is a card that upgrades all of your cards in your deck for the rest of the fight. This would be really useful since we're not going to be using the campfires to upgrade our cards, we're going to be using them to heal ourselves. Bottled Lightning is a relic that lets you pick a skill and always start the fight with it in your hand. Put them together and you've basically just upgraded every card in your deck for the rest of the game. Following this, I found a strange book, and since I'm illiterate in real life, it physically hurt me to read it, but we pushed through and we got a pretty cool relic. I killed a couple more strange plants and came across the Gambler's Chip. This relic would be key to fixing my opening hand in case it sucked, because when you can't block anything, if you get a bad opening hand, you can just die on turn 1. At this point in the game, it was the first time that I actually felt a little dangerous. Take this fight for an example. I was being accosted by 2 geometry problems when I took some steroids and I killed them both in 1 turn. After a few more fights, I made my way down to the second boss. I was doing pretty good on health, so instead of resting, I decided to upgrade Apotheosis. This reduced the cost from 2 to 1, it's a lot more palatable at 1. Anyway, we made our way to the boss. He has no head, and he seems to be just as confused about this as I am, but I softened him up a little, and he summoned some friends. I stabbed them to death. My next hand is just a thing of beauty. I basically drew 8 shivs, so you know what I did. I stabbed some people to death. At this point, I got phenomenally lucky. Dickie Doolittle over here was lining up to do 20 damage to me, but I drew into Wraith form, and so I brought that down to 2 damage. However, Wraith form would only last 3 turns, so I needed to end this fight fast. I managed to fix my hand up and dig for Finisher, and I ended up doing 136 damage in 1 turn. Not too bad for a retard who can't block. The boss proceeded to unload his mega attack on me for a total of 1 damage, and then I stabbed him to death. Once he was dead, he gave us 2 very important things. 1 was a ritual potion, more on that later, and 2 was a card after image. Technically, this isn't a block card according to my definition. It does, however, give you a buff, which gives you 1 block every card you play. Combine this with like 12 shivs in a single turn and you got 12 block. You know, it's not much, but I need all the help I can get. Then, even better than that, was that he gave us probably the best relic I could have asked for, Wristblade. Attacks that cost 0 now deal 4 more damage. I almost cried. On to the 3rd and final floor. I was actually starting to make quick work of my enemies. You know, I felt confident, but then I remembered the 6 or 7 attempts at this challenge prior, and I kind of reined it in. I will say though, I thought this next fight was pretty funny. I gave myself 2 buffs right off the bat, after image, so every card I play gives me block, and 1,000 cuts, which deals 2 damage to every monster whenever I play a card. And so with a deck that plays 6 to 9 cards every turn, this went pretty smooth. I made my way through the next few rooms, drafting the following cards: Metamorphosis, Slice, and Setup. Slice is just generally good because it's a free attack, and Wristblade makes it deals more damage. Metamorphosis is actually really good because it shuffles in a bunch of random attack cards into my deck that cost 0, and then Wristblade makes them deal more damage. And Setup it's just a generally good card because you can put things on top of your draw pile from your hand to kind of save them for next turn. Anyway, I eventually ran into this friendly guy, and I just want to say, sometimes you can judge a book by its cover because this dude was a dick. He proceeded to smack my ass like a drum. Eventually he too was stabbed to death, and he gave us another ritual potion. A plan is forming at this point. More on that later though. After a couple more enemies, we finally make it to the last boss. The bad news was that after fighting a myriad of freaks, we only had 32 health, later increasing to 52 after resting. At this point, I don't just think I'm fucked, I know it. I know it in my heart. However, I do still have my plan, so we go into the boss fight. And the boss is randomized, but we get lucky and it's the Awakened one. He has 2 phases. He gains strength whenever you use a power, and he regenerates 10 health every turn. There are a lot of builds that have a hard time with this boss, but the Shiv build is not one of them. Fix my hand up as best I can with Gambler's Chip, and then deploy my master plan. I drink not 1, but 2 potions. Okay, nothing groundbreaking, but these potions give me a buff. At the end of each turn, gain 2 strength. If I can survive long enough, I can just keep gaining strength, and eventually I will achieve Ronnie Coleman level of strength. Now on to my opening hand. I play After Image to help me survive. I play Tools of the Trade because it's free and I can't say no to free. Like, morally I can't. Then I use Setup to put my finisher on top of my draw pile. It would have been an okay play on turn 1, but I'm banking on turn 2 being a little better for it, so we'll get it next turn. On to turn 2. Aside from the boss trying to hit me for 22 damage, it's looking better. Use Piercing Wail to reduce the enemy's strength, again just trying to survive long enough to get thick. I apply Weak to the boss and proceed to beat the shit out of his friends with Shiv and Finisher. Thanks to Afterimage, I managed to just barely block all damage. Turn 3, I'm up to 4 strength now. This is not much, but I also draw my Wraith form, so that buys me 3 more turns.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
My Shivs are now 0 cost cards that deal 12 damage. That's a little fucked. It's pretty good. Dump my hand and then on to turn 4. Turn 4, I draw Jax, which I'm very happy to see. I inject that right into my nutsack for fast acting absorption, so I'm now at 9 strength. Beat up the boss a little more, and then I pass. Okay, going into turn 5, I'm getting pretty strong, but I only have 1 more turn of Wraith form left, so it has to end soon. Shivs are now dealing 22 damage, and Finisher does 22 damage for each attack I've used. I go ahead and deal 181 damage this turn, and the boss enters phase 2. He is pissed. Turn 6, no more Wraith form, and he's looking to deal 44 damage out of my 50 health. Fuck. The turn goes okay. I managed to get him down to half health, but he brings me down to 22. If I can't kill him next turn, it's almost definitely over. Turn 7. We are at 18 strength now. Shivs deal 26 damage. I dump my hand on him for all I've got. Combined, I deal 150 fucking 7 damage. Then I look at his health. Then I look at the strike plus in my hand. I take a minute to soak it in. I've got this son of a bitch. All I need to do is use my last strike to kill him. And for the first time in this playthrough, I actually feel at peace. It's tranquil. I can hear the birds chirping and the bees buzzing, and life is good. Then I stab him to death. The game ends with the classic bittersweet victory screen, but I couldn't care less about that insolent little question mark at the end. We fucking did it. We beat Slay the Spire without using a single block card. It was exceptionally tricky, and it really made me appreciate the humble defend card, which I had previously considered boring. Fun challenge. I would encourage anyone watching the video to give the game a try, or if you already have the game, give the challenge a shot. Finally, I just want to say thank you for watching, liking, or subscribing, and I'll see you guys in the next video.